Well, hello, Catherine Langman here. Welcome back for another episode of the Productpreneur Success Podcast. And today I want to ask you a question. Have you ever experienced a situation like where your ads are just not attracting or engaging your audience? So maybe the costs are really high, like just even getting traffic to your website is really high, or the return on ad spend is really expensive and you're just not getting great results with your advertising. And maybe, same question with your marketing emails. Are they not getting great open rates, or are you not generating much in the way of revenue from your emails? So whether or not you do your ads or your emails yourself, or you have someone on your team, or you're outsourcing to someone else, this really isn't uncommon. It's quite a common scenario to be experiencing this in your business. And frequently it'll be accompanied by, ignorance around how to fix the situation, just not knowing what to do about it, right? So we see a lot of brands and marketers trying to turn that sort of situation around using one of two common strategies, either using bigger and more frequent discounts, or trying to spend their way out of it by just throwing more money at the ad spend. But trying to solve a conversion problem with discounts or more ad spend isn't going to help you, not in the long term anyway, and especially without actually figuring out what is causing the problem in the first place, which I'm sure when I put it like that makes sense, right? And what is frequently the problem here is that the marketing content just does not resonate with the customer because the brand or the marketer just hasn't really developed that very deep understanding of your customer. And we need to develop this really thorough profile of who they are, your customer avatar, and how they go about making that purchase decision when it comes to, choosing to buy the kind of thing that you sell. And so we call this a buyer journey. It might be a familiar piece of jargon, but it is a really useful tool in your toolkit when it comes to marketing your business. Now, many brand owners do tell us that other marketers, or even themselves, or they just don't really understand their brand or their customer properly. And this might, they might have already done some sort of a customer avatar exercise. Most of them haven't actually done a buyer journey exercise, a little bit less common, but even those who have done both exercises frequently don't know how to apply them to their marketing or advertising. So they kind of just sit, on their digital shelves gathering virtual dust, so to speak. And so, they end up just guessing about how to communicate with their audience properly, about, how to get the right tone of voice, about what kind of content or information their customers actually need to know, and what might shift the needle with buyers, without trying to resort to constant deep discounts. And again, this usually doesn't work, this guessing business, because the marketing and advertising content doesn't resonate with the customer. So the conversion rates are low and the return on investment on your ad spend is less profitable, or just not profitable. So here's what we're going to cover during today's episode. I'm going to share with you the difference between your customer avatar and your buyer journey. We're going to go through the 4 main stages of your buyer journey and how to go about documenting it, and of course, how to use it to improve your marketing and your advertising results. Now, before we get there, let me quickly share with you how you can download a really useful free resource that will really help you when it comes to trying to write great ads for your business, for your brand. And this resource really should complement what we're going to cover in today's episode, or really what we're going to cover in today's episode should inform what you write in your ads. So this will be the perfect next step. So my Facebook ad template is for you if you really feel like you have no idea how to write Facebook ads that will actually engage your audience and convert into customers, and you'd like to follow a simple template that will show you how to make it easy. So to get your copy today, just head to catherinelangman.com/perfect-ad-template, where you can get instant access today, and you'll be rocking your Facebook ads in no time. If that URL is hard to remember, just go to the podcast show notes and you can click on the link there. All right, so without further ado, let's dive into today's episode. And first things first, let's quickly cover how to document your customer avatar, because before defining your buyer's journey, you'll need to define who your buyer is. Who is your target customer? And so you want to think about descriptive qualities along demographics and geographics like age, gender, location, maybe education level. You might look at things like income level, what job do they have, what kind of family do they have if they have a family. So try and describe them as best as you can then. But then you also want to dive into what we call psychographics, and this would be looking at things like interests, hobbies, values and beliefs, personality as well. So personally, I find the most useful way to document your customer avatar is kind of like writing a character description like you might for a movie, because it's going to end up being a lot more tangible and useful to you if you can really get inside their personality and their loves and hates and their personal beliefs and values, and really what sparks their interest or makes them laugh, as well as the basic characteristics like I started with, demographics or geographics. It's especially useful to think about it in this way because your brand will also need to demonstrate its own personality and communicate with your audience using your own brand's tone of voice and so on. So you really want your brand and your custom avatar to get along like a couple of best friends hanging out, right? That's how you're going to become really engaging to your ideal customer, really attract and engage the right people, right? So next, let's go over what your buyer journey actually is, because it might feel, like I said earlier, a little bit like a jargon word. And if so, let's kind of clarify it, because this is a really useful tool that you can use to improve your marketing. So basically, your buyer journey just means it's the decision-making process that your ideal customer goes through from having a realization that they need something or want something to finally making a purchase and using the product. And so there are 4 stages in the buyer journey that you need to consider when communicating to your potential customers through your marketing and your advertising. So let's go over each of them, and I'm going to share some examples of how you can apply this to your marketing and advertising and what kind of content that you can create that will make sense at each stage of the buyer journey, because the goal with your marketing and the content that you use in your marketing is to help move the customer down that buyer journey so that they make that purchase decision. So the 4 stages are awareness, consideration, conversion, and then loyalty. You might find some other variations on the internet if you do a Google search about a buyer journey. This is what I like to use for a product business, an e-commerce business, because it's very tangible to how we run our marketing. So you want to find out and document what your customers are thinking and feeling and doing at each of those stages in their decision-making process. So let's dive into it now and just kind of go through it in a little bit more detail. So the awareness stage is the first stage, and this is the point where your ideal customer just, has that realization that they need or want something, and they're going to start looking for a solution to it. Now, of course, I'm not talking about going to the supermarket and just buying your regular groceries. This is not, that's not really, there's not a whole lot of consideration there. You're just going to buy what's on the shelf. Probably you're going to buy the brand that you usually buy. So I'm talking about the kind of products that you guys sell a little bit more expensive than a can of beans, and that's going to have a little bit more consideration to it. So these days, as consumers, we usually begin to search online for solutions, or of course, we might ask our mates for a recommendation. But of course, a lot of us are reaching for, our phone or our trusty laptop, and we're going to start Googling to, or looking over Instagram, or we might go onto Pinterest, or whatever's relevant for your sort of product. YouTube is another go-to place. And so, the content that you're creating needs to be, first of all, it needs to be in the place where they're going to be looking, right? And secondly, you need to be creating content that is going to answer their questions or their concerns, or just pique their interest at this awareness stage. So they're really very early in their buyer journey, and, they might look for more content or confirmation at a later stage. But, at this early awareness stage, you really want to create content that is going to start a conversation with your ideal customers at the place that they're at now. So to put it into context, maybe have a think about the last time you went, I don't know, clothes shopping, or what's something that I bought recently. I was recently looking to change the brand of makeup that I was using, because I am getting a little bit older now, and I needed something that was going to work for my mid-40s changing skin type, and also had, you know, a bit more awareness around some of the ingredients in mainstream products that I wasn't keen on, that sort of, you know, those sorts of less natural and organic type ingredients. I felt like they would not be great for me. So that was kind of like where my head was at, and I was starting to do some Googling to find some options and really do a little bit of research about, you know, what else was out there that might fit this new requirement for me. Hopefully that makes sense. So anyway, it's important to start a conversation with your ideal customers where they're at right now, right? And it needs to resonate with their most common needs or wants or desires or pain points. And, you know, you might be able to ask them questions, or you might be able to talk to them about the concerns that they have or the problems that they're having, or, you know, whatever the case may be for your customers. So then you can create your marketing and your advertising content that answers those questions. And when you create content, you do also want to think outside the blog box. You want to consider your audience, or how your audience wants to consume that content. Like I said before, where is your audience going to go looking for information? Are they going to TikTok, or are they going to YouTube, or are they going to, you know, where are they searching for information? So, you know, some might also prefer audio, or in which case a podcast would be great. So just have a think about that. Those, you know, it's the topics, and it's also where your customers are going to go looking. Obviously, a lot of people still Google for this stuff too, although Google is also the go-to place when people are really ready to buy. So a little bit further down the buyer journey. All right, on to the second stage of the buyer journey, and this is the consideration stage. So at this stage, your customer is a little bit more aware of their problem or their desire or their need, and they're considering possible options. And so somebody said to me recently, actually, oh, my product is so unique, I don't have any competitors. There aren't any other options that, you know, could be considered. And that's never true. And, you know, you really don't want it to be true. Really, you want to make sure that you are considering wherever else, or whatever other brands or products or services that your customers might choose to solve the same need, want, or desire. Your product might be a whole lot more innovative than any other option, but, you know, everybody's got a competitor. So even when the first iPhone came out, you know, they pretty much changed the mobile phone market, but people could still use, you know, a much more analog phone, or they could use an old, you know, dial telephone or whatever. So there's always another option for customers, and you need to really think about what those possible solutions are. So, and it's also really important to remember that customers today are a lot more informed than before, because of, you know, the internet. You know, information is easy to access. So we really can't dismiss this stage and assume that they're going to automatically realize that your product is the solution to their needs and wants. So the content that at this stage really needs to answer their questions to the fullest. And so what you want to be doing is creating content that covers things like the key benefits that they're going to enjoy or experience when they use your products, or the characteristics of your product, your brand, the shopping experience, or the, you know, the customer service that might be important factors to, you know, contribute to your customers' decision making. You need to really, and don't guess with this stuff, right? You need to know what this stuff is. So the kinds of content that might work here would be things like detailed blogs and videos and social media content on how to use your products in different scenarios that would be familiar to your customers. So the next stage in the buyer journey is the best part, right? This is the purchase decision stage. We all want that. And, you know, the decision stage really is where your customer is making that decision and they're going through the action of purchasing, right? So, you know, they're choosing what is going to solve their need or their desire or relieve their pain point. So at this point, what you want to do is to establish trust and overcome perceived risks that might be holding your customers back from making that purchase decision. So the sorts of content that works well here are things like social proof, so reviews and testimonials. You might have things like free returns and product guarantees and awards that you've won, or anything that's going to give you credibility to your brand reputation, right? So it's going to make the customer feel really confident and comfortable with going through the motions of actually buying from you. So then the fourth stage is loyalty, right? So this is where the buyer has bought from you, and when they've perhaps gone on to buy from you again and become a loyal repeat customer, which is, you know, this is the golden, what's that word? Well, it's like the pot of honey at the end of the rainbow, but like this is what you really want. This is what's going to grow your business and help you to become as profitable as possible, because it is easier and more profitable to keep reselling to your existing current customers than to constantly rely on finding new customers. It's not always possible if you're like a single purchase only brand, but if you have the the ability to sell multiple times to the same customer, then you are going to be, you know, creating a much more profitable, lucrative business in the long term. So this is why it is super important to impress them with the content and with the service and with the product at this stage, right? So obviously, you do need to sell them a product that does what it says on the tin. You know, it needs to do what you promise, give them the experience that you promise. You also really need to make sure that you are providing really great customer service so that, you know, you don't make it difficult or an awful experience for customers to do business with you. But in terms of your marketing content, after your customers buy from you, you don't want to drop the ball then. You know, you have brought them this far, and you need to, you know, keep communicating with your new customer with great content in this final stage. So we like to talk about onboarding your new customers with, you know, it can be a combination of different types of content, but certainly automated email sequences or flows that welcome them to your brand family and include content that might help them have a better experience. If there's anything about what you sell that might have common customer service inquiries or problems. So for me, my last business was a modern cloth nappy brand, and, you know, there were always common questions that came up about how to use and care the product. So, you know, if you have a similar situation where customers typically need a little bit of education and hand-holding, do this in an automated email flow. But and then you can move on to provide, you know, really great offers and other content and new products and things like that in your emails that are going to really help your customers have the best possible experience using your product and dealing with you as a business, right? And like I said before, having really great customer service is also exceptionally important, because you do want to, it really helps to kind of roll out the red carpet to your new customers, right? And that's going to set a really positive first note to a new customer, and that's going to help turn them into repeat buyers as well. So you really want to ensure that your customers are continually impressed with your product by regularly sending them things like newsletters on email, sharing great content on social media as well. You can use things like loyalty programs at this stage, so that, you know, often will work really well at enticing a customer back for a repeat purchase, make them feel a little bit like a VIP, right? And of course, you can include any new product launches and promotions as well, designed to turn a one-time buyer into a repeat buyer and hopefully a future brand advocate as well. Okay, so we've gone over the 4 stages of the buyer journey, and I've given you some suggestions and some ideas for the kinds of content that will suit each stage. But I also want to talk more about how you apply this concept to all of your marketing and advertising. So first of all, I want to warn you against being too factual and logical with your application of this buyer journey concept and the content that is supposed to help move customers through their purchase decision. Why do I say that? I mean, obviously they need the facts too, right? But, you know, here's the deal. Us humans typically make purchase decisions, or any decisions, based on emotion, and then we justify that with logic. So if a customer buys based on logic or based on fact, which is, you know, a left brain kind of feature type language, they have no way to then justify their purchase, and you run the risk of them feeling kind of sold to or experiencing buyer's remorse. And, you know, let me give you an example here as well. So have you ever been shopping and ended up buying a whole lot more than you intended? Usually these days I only do that at the supermarket because my kids eat so much, but, you know, I've done that in the past with clothing and things like that. generally you only do that sort of thing in the spur of the moment. You know, it's spontaneous, it's not planned. And then you get home with all of this stuff, or, you know, maybe it gets delivered by your postie if you bought it online, and then you sort of justify it to yourself with logical arguments like, well, it was on sale, so it was a smart time to buy it. So the thing is, we need to make sure that our marketing content speaks to the emotions of your ideal customer as well, right? So it's the polar opposite of the logical facts of a situation. So this means you kind of need to be telling stories. You know, people remember stories because it's really vivid and engaging way of imparting information. And I guess stories typically follow a storyline, and it helps customers to remember it. You know, our brains are more able to remember what we've been told if it's told in a story format. Whereas facts are kind of boring, and our brains just typically don't remain them. Unless you're my oldest son and it involves stats about swimming, he's like a encyclopedia. He can tell you all the stats from about the last 40 years of competitive swimming around the world. Crazy. Anyway, you can even do this, tell stories, I mean, using really short copy. So for example, we teach our clients how to write product value statements. So this is kind of like the shortest storytelling framework I know. So it might be, we help frazzled, sleep-deprived new mums and their babies to enjoy deep restorative sleep, which is going to be a whole lot more interesting than saying, buy our baby sleep swaddle, right? So I want to talk to you next about your imagery and visuals as well, because these can be emotive or logical too. So sometimes we do need the logical images, such as product shots showing various angles and details on your product pages on your website. But most of the time, we need the emotion-inducing lifestyle images showing your products in use in familiar settings to your customers, right? Usually, I like to aim for lifestyle images that are pitched at a slightly aspirational version of your ideal customers' lives, because, hey, we all want to make our lives a little bit better, right? And that's part of what we're hoping for with our purchase decisions as consumers. That's what we're hoping for, right? So next, once you've kind of considered those two things, the copy and the imagery, I want you to consider how you apply your buyer journey to your website. So with your website, and this actually is going to apply to emails as well, you need to bear in mind that our customers read from left to right and from top to bottom. Now, I'm saying that from the perspective of living in a majority English-speaking country. Of course, it may well be different from where you are, in which case, just to adjust that statement accordingly. So keeping that in mind, there is a way of chunking your content and displaying it in an order that helps move your customers through their buyer journey. And we need to do it in the right order so that it feels intuitive. The experience of going through your website is intuitive to your potential customer. And it goes like this: attention, interest, desire, social proof, action. So once we know what is going through your customers' minds and emotions at the awareness stage of their buyer journey, and we've thought about the emotive language and imagery we want to use to appeal to our customers, then you can create a really eye-catching hero image, at the top of your website, to something that's going to really be really engaging and eye-catching, and really capture the attention of your potential customer, and also have a really catchy headline and a call to action button overlaid on the image as well. So that's the attention bit, and this is where we're really trying to resonate with both the awareness stage of their buyer journey, but also trying to speak to the experience that they want to enjoy at the end, right? So that product value statement in a nutshell, right? And then to pique their interest, then you want to have a bold statement and a short 2-sentence story underneath that hero image. Moving further down, to increase desire, you might then move into content like bestsellers or most popular products, and you might have a great video, or you might have some other content that really speaks to what is important for your customers when it comes to buying your kind of products. So this is where you really need to speak to that consideration stage of the buyer journey. Next is pretty obvious, being social proof, right? You want to share your customer testimonials and reviews. It is usually going to be more of a trustworthy experience for the customer, and therefore more impactful if you use a verified reviews app like Stamped or Judge Me. And personally, I love it when those sorts of reviews also use images shared by the customer as well, although that's not always necessary. But certainly if you're selling something that is aesthetic, like makeup or fashion or accessories or anything like that, that's useful. And this, this kind of content speaks to that conversion stage, as does the next bit, which, the last part of the content flow on your homepage is action. And, there are a couple of ways that we want customers to take action. At this point, if you don't already have any products on your homepage where customers can add straight to the cart from the homepage, then you want to add that kind of a block in. It's also really useful to have an email sign-up form here as well, because if customers have got this far, but they haven't clicked through to see more about the products or to add to cart yet, then they're clearly interested because they've spent a bit of time on your website, but they're not there yet, right? So you want to get them onto your email list so that you can follow up with them at a later date and try and, convert them into a buyer through that follow-up. And like I kind of said before, when it comes to your marketing emails, you want to lay out the content using a similar flow of content as well. So next, let's quickly discuss your advertising and how to apply your buyer journey to your ads as well. Now, you've probably heard the term funnel when it's, applied to advertising, also applied to automated emails as well. But, when it comes to advertising, it's probably most commonly aligned with Facebook advertising versus Google advertising. We should be doing both, but anyway, basically all a funnel means is essentially you are tailoring the content in the ads or in the emails or wherever the funnel is to the audiences that equate to those different stages in the buyer journey, right? So in the awareness stage of the buyer journey, your ads are going to be showing to cold audiences of people who've never come in contact with your brand. This is the top of funnel, right? And again, like when I spoke about the homepage of your website, you really want to use emotive visuals. You want to use copy that attracts the attention of the potential customers who have, a need or a want or a desire that your product solves, okay? So that's how you're going to help stop the scroll and really engage with the right people at that kind of awareness cold stage of the buyer journey. In your middle of funnel, your audience is warm. They've recently engaged with your brand either on social media, or maybe they were looking on your website, or they might have, signed up to your email list or whatever the case may be, but they haven't bought yet. So the content and the visuals in your ads at this stage should hover between the consideration and decision stage. So, things like demonstration videos or customer testimonials often work really well here. And then at the bottom of the funnel, your audience is really super hot. They're probably super close to buying. They might have just abandoned cart, for example, or they've been really super active engaging with your brand on social media or on your website just in the last few days. And so this is where you need to be overcoming objections. So whether it's about the product itself and you need to use strategies like guarantees, fast delivery and free returns, or if the perceived risk is more about something like the cost of shipping or just the cost of trialing, then you can share a free shipping code or an incentive of some kind. So hopefully that makes sense for you guys and gives you some insight into how you should be using your buyer journey in your advertising and in your marketing in a way that is going to really help attract and engage the right customers at the right stage of that buyer journey and really be more impactful, because you are going to be communicating with them where they're at in that decision-making journey. So they're much more likely to respond the way you want, moving further down that buyer journey and making a purchase with you. Now, you might be wondering how you identify what is important to your customers and what they might be thinking, feeling, and doing at each stage of their buyer journey. And the good news is you don't need to guess. There is a framework to figure this out, and it's super step by step. And this is exactly what we teach our coaching clients and help our agency clients implement as well. So if you'd like to speed up the process of learning and implementing and getting results faster, please reach out to me, because there are a variety of ways that my team and I can help you depending on the stage of business that you're at. This is what I do and love to do every single day. So whether you are looking for coaching to help you learn and implement these things, or if you're looking for a team of experts to outsource to, just head on over to catherinelangman.com/work-with-me. You'll find the link right at the top of the website anyway, and you'll be able to find out about those different options. So that's it for today's episode. I really hope you've enjoyed it. If you did, I would be forever grateful if you would share it with one or two of your business besties, especially if you know that this is a topic that they struggle with, or if they're really just struggling with how to get their marketing working and their audience, really dialed in and engaging with them. Super easy to share a podcast episode. Just click on the icon next to the podcast on whichever platform you listen to it, copy and share the link, and then you can just message it to your friends. But that is it for this week, and I look forward to being with you again on the show next week. Between now and then, have a fabulous day and week, and I will be with you again next week. Bye for now.